when you look at the companies and if you look into the way they operate, there's a feeling that you get that they tend to work in a product-centric approach. That means that they follow product centricity. That is, the product is in the focus. And this happens probably because they are technological companies, or also the fact that there is a lot of engineering, a lot of research and development involved in it. As a result, the focus or the overarching framework is on the product. So how do they do? They try to use certain metrics such as product success, product revenue, organization structure which is based on product, the success, that is a new product success or existing product success, or we can say a product profitability. But then I am proposing alternate approach. It's not, the alternate approach is not there, or the alternate approach which I am telling to you, that is a customer centricity, is proclaimed by the companies. It is in their wish list. So if you look into the vision statement or the mission statement of the organizations, I'm sure you will agree with me that all these organizations, they put an emphasis on the customer. That is where you find certain terminologies, that is customer satisfaction, customer experience in focus. But then if you want to infuse customer centricity in the organizations, I feel there are three things that is required. The first is about the customer insights. So how you are capturing the customer insights into the organization, and that is where I will say an outside in view. So this can happen when your people are in constant touch with the customers, and they also feel happy to share these insights, even if these insights are sometimes against the organizations, right? So it's important to have an outside in view, and this can also be practiced by involving, or what there is a terminology, that is customer co-creation, and this can be during the design of the products, or design of a value proposition, design of a kind of a concept that you are proposing. So at that point of time, if you bring the customers, into the design, they will be able to reflect the important points which are of concern to them, and there's a possibility that if that would not have been done, then you would have overlooked this. So that is point number one. Point number one is about the customer insights. Point number two is about the how you are preparing yourself, or how you are structuring your organization, right? So what kind of organizational structure you are able to evolve, or you are able to practice to infuse the customer centricity. And the third point is about the experience, the real experience that the customer gets. It's all about execution. So first is about the design, second is about the structure. So when we already discussed about the design, so in the design we can bring the customers. It's not only important to bring the customers from the same industry, or the customer perspective from the same industry. It's also important to get the perspective from different industry. Maybe at this point of time that is not is happening in your organization or in the industry, but then you are preparing yourself, it's likely to happen, right? So it's important to bring these points, and that's why it's called as an outside in view, right? And customer has to be there in the design, and there's also talk that customer also has to be there in the boardroom. The second aspect, as I talk about the structure, so structure is about what kind of organization structure you are want to evolve, and this can happen when you are able to have organization with a cross-functional mentality. You are busting the silos. So generally, the silos or the functional, the focus, it tries to drive away the customer centricity. So if you want to prepare yours, or you want to have your organization, with a focus on the customer centricity, it's important to have a structure. Now, structure is important to have person to have this responsibility, right? Shouldering with the responsibility. And there are terminologies which are coming. Some of the organizations are having the practice of a chief customer officer, that is CCO. So in some organizations, the CCO is reporting directly to the chief executive officer. That brings customer closer to the organization. And who can be a CCO? What can be the temperament, or what can be the profile of a CCO? The CCO has to be a very diplomat, so he needs to have diplomatic skills, because he's going to talk to various functions, and he's going to infuse the customer centricity into the organization. Second aspect is that he has to be data driven. He has to bring the data, and has to be innovation, because customer centricity and innovation, they are interlinked. So he needs to have an innovation mindset, and it's important that the person who is the chief customer officer, he walks the talk, right? He's close with the front line. He listens to what that the customer is telling about organizations, and he brings this perspective into the boardroom, so that the boardroom has an understanding of the status or the level of customer centricity in the organization, and then they can step up their their efforts in this direction. So here it's important, about organizations, important to also look into the metrics, right? So you need to turn from the product profitability to the customer profitability. You need to turn from the market share, which is focused on the product, to the customer equity. You need to move from a product profitability to a customer profitability. That is the essence. The third is about the customer experience. So here is important for organizations. So here the execution comes into play. So organization needs to look into how we are going to provide an experience which a customer considers as very important, which is very different from the other organizations, and he feels that it is relevant, he feels so attached, and he feels loyal, and he feels that and there are different ways, and so you need to map the customer journey. So organization needs to map this customer journey and need to execute the customer centricity actually into the reality. And if there are any variances which are there between the design and the execution, that also needs to be looked in by the organization. So I'm sure you will all agree with me that you need to remove this myopia, okay, and have a customer centricity, infuse customer centricity in the organization. Thank you very much. Thank you.